Welcome to the Performance Plastics Podcast, hosted by IAPD, the only podcast dedicated to providing you information and insights into the world of engineering-grade plastics and how they benefit society by improving the quality of everyday life. Now here's your host, Kylie Canty.
Today's podcast is an introduction to IAPD's new Vice President, Peter DelGado. A member of the Curbell Plastics team since college, Peter has held nearly every customer-facing position in the company, including roles in inside and outside sales, as well as various management positions in sales and business development. With more than 30 years of experience in the business, Peter brings an extraordinary degree of insight to his position as the Senior Director of Sales and Customer Service for Curbell Plastics, where he focuses on company-wide strategies to improve the buying experience for customers. Peter is a nationally recognized leader in the performance plastics industry. In 2018, the IAPD awarded Peter with its Pacesetter Award, recognizing his extraordinary impact on the association's growing membership and prominence in the performance plastics industry. As chair of the IAPD membership committee, he leads the association's efforts to recruit and retain member companies that demonstrate exceptional stewardship of the supply chain. He's also served the association as a member of its board of directors, played a key role in several working committees and task forces, and presented on numerous topics to the IAPD membership. Please enjoy this conversation with IAPD Vice President Peter DelGado.
Okay, hello, Peter. How are you today?
Hi, Kylie. Doing great today. How are you?
I'm doing really well. Thank you so much for asking, and thank you for coming on here and doing this with us and introducing yourself as the new IAPD Vice President. So I'm just going to ask you a couple of interview questions so that everybody can get to know you a little bit better. But why don't you start out with just telling me a little bit about yourself and where you grew up and where you came from?
Yeah, okay. So I grew up in Utica, New York, like right in the middle of New York State. I went to school. My college experience, I changed my mind a bunch of times on what I wanted to do. So I went to school at a few different places and ended up graduating from Syracuse University. So I have a number of degrees. I have 2 associates and a dual major bachelor's, and didn't know what I wanted to do and all that stuff. So New York, central New York, grew up in a really traditional old school Italian family, like work ethic, honesty, integrity, and that type of stuff. I learned that from my parents and tried to instill or use that throughout my career and family life and everything like that. So
that's incredible. I feel like as, somebody who grew up in a very education focused family, I couldn't imagine going to several different colleges. And, I feel like that's what the whole point of college is to go and explore what you want to do. But from such a young age, it was nailed into me, you have to do this. But to explore and get different types of degrees, that sounds like a really interesting path to take.
Well, yeah, and it's interesting because when I was in high school, people that know me, they're always shocked when they hear this, but I was salutatorian in my high school class. I was super smart. I guess I'm not anymore. I don't know. That's why I don't know what happened.
I was gonna say, I don't think people are surprised to hear that, but
no, but I was really good in math and science. So of course, my dad, my guidance counselor, you need to be an engineer, right? So that's what, and my dad went down at the time, the list of how much engineers make. And he's like, you should be a chemical engineer. And I had no idea what I wanted to do. So I started out at Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, RPI in Troy, New York, in chemical engineering. And hated it. I could not be a chemical engineer, but I kind of liked chemistry. So I went to community college and I just got a 2-year chemistry degree in 1 year there, finished an associate chemistry. I got involved in promoting concerts and student government and the radio station and all this stuff at this community college. So I'm going to stay here because I'm enjoying this. And I switched over to general business courses and talked to Syracuse University and said, I want to come in and I want to be able to do this in a couple of years. What do I need? So they helped me what I needed to take there. And then I ended up at Syracuse and switched into marketing and management information systems, which I don't even know if that's a major anymore, but it kind of combines at the time computers with applying them to business, which after I graduated, I'm like, I'll never use that. And now it was like super helpful, like in my career path after. So that's my strange college, 6 years of college story. And then I graduated with like all these degrees and started selling copiers. And like my parents were like, what? Like all this school and all this, and you're a copier salesman. But I had a roommate that was doing it and making some money. So I started selling copiers I did it for 2 or 3 months. And I'm like, I started right out of school, like the week after I graduated. So I started interviewing and looking at different things. And I was intrigued by Curbell because I didn't know much about it. It was a recruiter found me, and I liked that it was like plastics and technical, and I could relate to that part of it, but it was still a sales job, which I thought that's what I kind of want to do. So that was how I landed in industrial plastics or performance plastics.
Happenstance. Well, when you're talking about your college, it sounds like you actually named every single major that exists for what you studied.
Yeah.
But I'm interested to hear a little bit more about your concert promotion and your radio. It just is so different from what you do now, or are there some parallels that you see that are similar, and kind of explain to me what your role in that was?
Yeah, that's so in college I just got involved in the college radio piece. I just got involved in a radio station, and I did that there, and then that came back later in life when I was here in Cincinnati back in 1995. Shortly after, I'm a Deadhead, a Grateful Dead head from way back when. So the local college radio station here, after Jerry Garcia died, wanted to start this like Grateful Dead show, and somebody who knew me said, "Oh, you got to talk to this guy." So I ended up doing a radio show on Saturday nights with a couple other people. We would like rotate for about 15 years. And that was really fun. And it was total volunteer, just kind of a fun thing. Saturday nights playing whatever I wanted to. So that was the radio part. So Keith Hechtel made a joke at the leadership conference recently about, he tells people when they present, just be yourself. Don't use your radio voice. Unless you're Peter DelGado, you can use your radio voice.
Your radio voice is your voice.
It is it. This is my voice. So, and the concert thing, I've always been a music person forever. And I got involved at RPI, actually. I joined the concert board and promoted some concerts and really liked it. So when I went to the community college in Utica, I actually had an advisor there who was kind of into it, and we got our concert board going and actually promoted some really great bands for a small school. We were able to get some great concerts back then. And this was like early 80s. So bands like Asia, Peter Gabriel, the B-52s, and, bands like that. So we promoted a lot of concerts, and I kind of stayed in that. I actually did it after I left there and worked for a promoter like part-time, and almost went into that industry. I got a job offer in New York City to work for Premier Talent, and said, no, it's not. It's too much of a rat race. And
yeah,
I ended up in plastics. But so I did that and promoted concerts. So that's kind of like, it's my hobby still. I go see a lot of live music. I know a lot of people in the industry and stuff like that. So it's fun.
That is so fun. I love that, how you turned your love for music into like a fun volunteer activity. But also, I feel like doing something like radio or having a hobby that isn't so, because if you've always been really math and science technical, and having like a more social hobby kind of helps you, especially in like a sales role, because it helps you kind of have to break out of your shell, or if you're interviewing somebody that you're not really used to talking to or don't really know too much of their world, it kind of forces you to know a little bit more.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you talked to a recruiter, or you saw what Curbell was doing and you were interested in that. Can you tell me a little bit about, that process of, were you approached by a recruiter, or did you just see a job application? Like, how did you even hear about Curbell?
Yeah, it was, I'm trying to think, I saw, there might've been an ad. It's been so long, but I was working through, I had like a recruiter, and I think Curbell had a recruiter or something. Maybe they connected or whatever, but I got teed up with Curbell. It was funny because I interviewed with 5 companies in this 1 month period. I took kind of a month off because I never took any time off after school. So I stopped selling copiers. I'm like, I'm just going to stop.
No more copiers.
Find a different job. The 5 companies were all very different things. And I actually got 4 job offers in, and Curbell was the second lowest job offer of the 4 job offers. But I really, really liked, kind of like, I don't know, I just liked what I was going to be doing. And it wasn't like they were like very different in money, but enough that I thought, well, I hope I'm gambling, and I got into something that I just really enjoyed and was able to apply my kind of like science background, chemistry background, engineering background to sales, and it really helped me a lot.
That's amazing. For somebody who doesn't really know, perhaps like kind of reaching to our younger crowd, when you explain to somebody what you do, like, oh, I work for Curbell. Okay, what's Curbell? How do you kind of explain the performance plastics world to somebody that maybe you just met and they have no idea what performance plastics is?
Yeah, I always tell people, and I do this a lot because I do a lot of, interviewing and recruiting within our company, and, or even if I talk to people like friends or whatever, like, what do you guys do? And the first thing I do is I tell them, everybody's seen that TV show, How It's Made. I think almost everybody's seen it. And I'm like, when you're in sales in this industry, especially like outside sales, it's like being on the TV show, How It's Made. You see every kind of industry. And that really intrigues people because, and I'll walk through and tell them like all the different types of things. Like I've, seen everything from, airplanes to cars to being made to chickens being processed to, semiconductors and everything in between. So you talk about that and it's like, wow, that's really interesting. So I think that's a big part of it, is that it's a really interesting industry, and we deal with so many different industries and how plastics is used in all of those. So that's kind of like, that's the tee up, I guess. When I talk to people about, about Curbell or about the plastics industry in general, I always talk about performance plastics. And I went through a period, and I know like IAPD did everything of like, how do I tell somebody I work in plastics, but I think it's the same thing of talking about that plastics are just, they're used everywhere. And if you get away from the single-use plastics and that type of stuff, that, performance plastics, and I'll just explain like some of the things they're used in every day. And that really helps people too, to kind of see like, oh, there's this, it's not this bad industry. Because especially with the younger people now coming out, they're just, it's been beat into them how bad plastics are. So getting over that. Yeah.
I'm going to totally steal that How It's Made example, because I think that is genius, because it's so visual and everybody's seen that show, and I'm pretty sure everybody loves it. But to explain like the little parts, and even like the machines that are doing that have plastic in them. So that is the best way.
So it's really cool. And it's not even just for the plastics, it's just for the experience of how our industry, when you look at all of our like distributors like Curbell and all of our manufacturers, everybody right up and down the line, we deal with so many different types of industry. And that's what keeps it really, I think, really interesting, because there's so many jobs where you just do like one thing and you deal with, one type of industry or whatever. And I don't know, I couldn't do that. I would get too bored.
Yeah, it's incredible. And you're right. Like there are some jobs that are really focused in on one, but the industry. And that's why I think like conventions and leadership development conference, like why they're so important, because you meet so many people that are like, oh no, I do marine and aerospace and food manufacturing, or I do, XYZ. And it's like, wait, what? I didn't even know that those existed. Like it opens the door to so many different things. So that's incredible. Is there a piece of advice, like if you could go back in time and tell Peter when he first started working for Curbell, a piece of advice to begin in the performance plastics industry? Is there anything that you'd say?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I do this with new employees too and stuff, but is to learn, keep an open mind. You don't need to have the answers. I think asking good questions, ask why, slow down and just soak up the information, because like when you come into any company in our industry, there's so many people with such good experience and they don't expect you to like know the answers. So often, when we get, and I'll try to find this out in interviews on how people, like you can tell sometimes where somebody who feels like they need to have the answers or like know it all type thing, they're not going to do as good, because you need to be humble. You need to learn from everybody you run across. And I think that's the number one piece of advice is to do that, learn from all the people around you and ask a lot of questions.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I'm right there with you. I think asking questions, just staying open to other possibilities and just always being hungry for and it's a changing industry. There's so many different things that happen every single year that are advancing us. So it's so important to be able to keep an open mind and be able to learn more.
Yeah.
Just even looking through our old, like intro to plastics manuals, like over the years, it's like, oh my gosh, like it's growing and growing and growing. There's so much more to learn. So that's crucial.
Yeah. When they did the Generation Next, the Gen Next things where they hosted things for like a week, and I did one of those days. And with the group I had there, we talked about just like what did you do? What made you, what as you grew in the company, like what made you successful? And that was really good. It was good to listen to, kind of a group of like new people coming in, and then just talk to them about like, hey, just get the experiences. And then the other thing I always say is like, once you're there, like if you're in there, is raise your hand and volunteer for stuff. Like, don't be afraid to like step up, because and even if you're not quite sure if you're the right person or you have the capabilities, like jump in and try it, because it just shows that, you want to do stuff, you want to learn, you want to expand. And I think, I did a lot of that early on. Like whenever there was something going on, I was volunteering. I'll do it. I didn't even know what I was getting myself into, but it got me into, I think my role now, people always ask me like, well, what do you do with Curbell? And I'm like, everything nobody else wants to do. Like, that is my first answer. And it's like, I have my title is, director of sales and customer service, but I do so many different things involved, like throughout the company. So it's a very different kind of role. And I think it's because throughout the years, I raised my hand and said, I'll be involved in this. I'll be involved in this. So I learned a lot about our systems and IT and, how all the different departments work together and training and all that type of stuff. So that's, if you get that well-rounded background, it will really help you. And you might go off in a different direction too. You might start out in sales and end up, we have people, really great people within Curbell that started out in sales and are now, our training team, and our training manager started out in inside sales and things like that. So, kind of do that, raise your hand, follow the things that excite you when you find something.
It sounds like you created your own position. Like,
yeah,
I want to do this.
Kind of.
So what position did you start in with Curbell? Like, can you walk me through what you started out as, and then how you worked your way up to what you're doing today?
Yeah, sure. I was in inside sales, and I was in inside sales for like 3 months, and an outside sales position opened up, and I did outside sales. And then I did that for a little over a year, and that was in Syracuse, New York. And then Scribel was opening a location in Cleveland. And so they wanted somebody from Curbell. They had a manager from another company coming in, but they wanted somebody from Curbell to go. So I said, well, okay, I'll go. And, a little bit of it was, you should go. Like, this is a good, this would be good for you. And I'm like, all right, I'll go. So I moved to Cleveland, didn't know anybody, helped open that branch and get it going. And about a year and a half later, they wanted to open in Cincinnati. And they said, and I was, less than 3 years in the business, and went and opened a branch from scratch. which was the best experience like ever. So I was, the branch manager, we call it business manager in Cincinnati. And then I kind of jumped around, helped open branches, helped the Trouble branch. Like I did a lot of that stuff and for about 6 years or so. And then I started covering a region. So I was a regional manager, regional director. And after that, I handled our business development team for a while. And then that just kind of evolved into this role as we change things. And I love what I do.
I love that. That is so great. And obviously it sounds like a really secure industry, and you've been with Curbell for, years. So it sounds like it's something that not only you can grow through professionally, but also personally, I can imagine.
Yeah, it's I've been there. Yeah, I've been here a long time. It'll be 36 years this year, so it's kind of crazy.
That's amazing, fantastic. So all of this like drive to do more and to ask questions. I'm curious where Peter DelGado finds his inspiration, or where you kind of get that drive from, or what keeps you going.
Yeah, that's I guess I'm just a very self-driven person. I saw a great quote. We do a sales blog every other month where, and I just kind of help curate it, and we get stuff from different people, and it's like a couple of articles and, maybe a quote. It's our sales results, all kinds of stuff. And we're just putting it together for to be released next week. And the quote that I really liked was it's from a book called A Touch of Greatness. I can't remember I'm for the life of me right now, I just wrote the guy's name down, but he's not like real, like a very evident name, A Touch of Greatness. But the quote was to paraphrase was like, don't feel like you need to have inspiration, because inspiration seldom generates action, but action always generates inspiration. And I really enjoyed that, because I think sometimes people look for inspiration to get going, and sometimes it's just do it. And like, if it's like the right thing, you're going on the right path, you'll find inspiration. So, so I guess, that just, I'm just kind of a self-driven person. So,
yeah, well,
I hope that answers that. That's kind of that's one of the questions. Like,
well, it makes me think too of like motion creates emotion too. I know I did a sales position for a while, and that was something that they told us, like, if you just keep going, or, if you do something, then it's going to create something within you that will keep you going, which is basically a really horrible paraphrase of what you just said.
No, but it's all the same. I think it very true. I think to do that. So I think that's, for me, I don't need to sit back and say like, okay, I need to get inspired. Like I wake up every morning. I love what I do. I'm kind of a high energy person. It's just like, it just kind of comes during the day. So.
Amazing. Is there anything else that you would want to say to anybody that's listening? Maybe it's a Generation Next person that is just kind of finding their way through plastics. Anything you want to promote?
No, I think, if you're watching this and you're working in one of our IAPD companies, just like raise your hand, put yourself out there, take a chance. Like, I think, this is a great industry. It's been we have great people and great companies and a lot of longevity in this industry. So enjoy that. And I guess I'll leave with one of my favorite quotes, believe it or not, is from a Grateful Dead song. And it's once in a while you get shown the light in the strangest of places if you look at it right. And I think that is one of those, like, when you say, where do you find inspiration from? I think don't ever assume, just kind of every once in a while, you're going to be like, wow, if I just kind of look at this a different way. So do that, and hopefully things will fall in place.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Peter, for everything. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to do this.
This podcast was brought to you by the International Association of Plastics Distribution. For more information on IAPD, please visit our website at www.iapd.org.